All right. Do we know who else is out at this UPLC workshop or whatever's going on in Edinburgh?
My understanding is that Kevin was the only one. I mean, within the TSC. Hopefully, there's other people, but within the TSC, I think it's the only one who is attending.
Okay.
So I don't know why so many people are missing. Oh yes, Sebastian is there's a Laos monthly call at the moment, so he may likely join after that. So in half an hour. For others, I don't know.
All right. Well, given the first one, I don't know that we can actually take concrete action on anyway. Johnny, do you want to go ahead and introduce kind of this community reward sharing schema update to the members that are present?
Yeah, okay. So this came through from the body of people working to try and come up with good changes to parameters to better distribute rewards in their opinion or manage stake delegation of rewards in general. And there is a document that they sent along, which I'll throw into chat here if someone can share it. And then there are 5 points. What they want to happen is Ecclesia to be leveraged to vote on these 5 points, which I'm not putting in chat as well for quick reference. And yeah, these being adopting SIP 50, which has been discussed in previous meetings, setting a parameter for initial parameter value for that parameter of SIP 50, which is called L, if it's to be adopted, and adopting SIP 163, which is a new one for discussion, the idea of time binding delegation and having a delegator inactivity setting. So after a certain amount of epochs, if they haven't proved that their wallet's active in any way, dropping delegation from an SPO. Yeah, that's an interesting one. And then if that's to be adopted, what should be the initial delegator inactivity period for the parameter if it's introduced? And then adopt SIP 23 is the last vote, which is to do with introducing a min margin instead of min pool cost or as well as. But yeah, these are the topics that are up for discussion to see if they get moved on to an Ecclesia vote.
Okay, and I've spoken to Ryan Wiley, who's one of the kind of the lead authors of this document. And obviously I'm going to recuse myself as they're planning on using the tool I created for the voting. And I will no longer be on this committee after the elections wrap up, which we'll get an update about here in a little bit. But what they were asking for is essentially the TSC to assess this document and make sure that what they are proposing is actually technically viable, I guess, is probably the best way to do it, so that they are not proposing something that is theoretically or practically impossible for the Cardano network, or in some way, dangerous. So they are asking for the TSC's opinion, and I mean, I guess I'm in favor of it. It does give us a work stream and an actual deliverable that we can do, but I would suggest that we couch it in such a way that it's not a recommendation for or against, but merely is it technically possible if the community should choose to adopt these things, yes or no?
I guess I'll be first to comment. I think they're technically able to be introduced as parameters, but I have some doubts as to the effectiveness of them, but that's more of a subjective reasoning for vote rather than a technical feasibility question, right? So which hat do I wear in the feedback in this meeting?
Go ahead, Duncan.
So I have to say I have not read SIP 50, but the standard question that one would ask in this circumstance is, right? I mean, typically, like, you can change the rules of a game in a game theory sort of setting, but the standard question is, what's the result? Like, what's the, how does it change the equilibrium? Are there new weird outcomes that you don't want? Has anyone done any analysis? that's the standard question. And
I
if,
can give you
if there is analysis, then that makes it a lot easier to both for us or for the DREPs to make an assessment.
I'll give you a brief rundown of SIP50. So this is the idea of introducing a parameter named L, and its purpose is the higher your pledge, the higher your saturation point can be, and the lower your pledge, the lower your saturation point can be. So it's trying to make pledge mean something more than it currently does, because higher pledge people will have a more of a right to get delegation. I find it personally uncomfortable because some smaller pools have lower pledge for a reason beyond their lack of conviction. That seems to be the way it's read. If you don't have high pledge, you don't have conviction. Some parts of the world have lower amounts of ADA that they can bring to the table in order to run a pool. And I don't know if it's as clear cut as you don't have the conviction if you don't have the pledge. But that, again, is not a technical analysis, and it's still something that could come into effect and work. But whether or not the outcome is desirable is a question.
Well, and back to Duncan's point, which is, I think, how we should assess all of these is, has proper game theory and technical analysis been performed on these? What happens if there's not enough pledge in the ecosystem in order for all ADA to participate in staking? Right now, all ADA can participate in staking regardless. This would actually put an upper bound on how much ADA can be staked, because pools would become saturated. So like there is an actual threat and danger to this that the authors probably are not considering, because this, in my opinion, is once again coming from we're small pools and we deserve to have rewards too, and big multi pools are bad sort of camp of.
And even if it does come from that camp, I think there's this disconnect between that position and the fact that some smaller pools have lower pledge. And if they got popular, they wouldn't be able to get the same level of saturation as someone else with a higher pledge. So it seems confusing to me, but maybe I'm wrong. But yes, you make a good point, Adam, that if they did do it that way, then there wouldn't be a straight cut represent all potential delegated ADA. That's a good thought.
All right, but yeah, so not to belabor the point, because again, we're not quorate in this meeting at the moment. So what I guess we would ask is that all TSC members would review this document, probably just raise any and all concerns you have internal to, like, in our Slack or Discord channels, and then we can coordinate and probably vote on a coordinated response maybe in a week or two to give feedback to these authors. And so let's take that as a takeaway, Johnny, if we can ask for all present and non-present members to at least read over the document real quick and provide at least their high level technical analysis, right? We're not asking anybody to dive really far into the weeds, but just give it at least a surface read and provide feedback.
Yes, indeed. And interestingly enough, Ryan himself might end up on the committee in the next number of weeks. He's a candidate, so he might be able to talk directly about this. But we'll see. Not trying to tip the scale, of course.
All right. And yeah, so our next agenda item was to have the hard fork working group scope discussion from Tex, but unfortunately we're not quorate to take a vote. And I know you did want to raise a vote, Tex, so we might have to do that async in the channel. Can you introduce?
It's possible.
We did have a yes in the chat from Kevin, so if everybody here was unanimous, essentially that could pass.
This is what I was going to say, and my vote is a yes.
Okay, well, why don't we let Tex then introduce the scope for the recording's sake, and then we can make a vote.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm fully qualified on this, but if you got. Let me see. I'm looking for the sheet itself. I've got it here somewhere. Oh, there it is. Look at that. So this has been shared on the channel, but I will share it again I'll share it here in the chat just to be sure. This is the current draft version of what is expected to be in this hard fork proposal. So it does include updates to Plutus and to Ledger. Those are detailed here. I believe the target for a hard fork at this point is sometime Q1, Q2 of 2026. But in the interest of having the hard fork working group in action for to handle basically everything within 6 months ahead of when the actual hard fork takes place, that would be the reason to get this up and going as quickly as possible.
And so is the request asking if this is an acceptable scope for the intra-era hard fork? Because I mean, I'm pretty sure we've already had committee support for reforming the hard fork working group, and that seems to kind of keep simmering on the burner, but not really moving and progressing forward.
Yeah, so I believe it's just as simple as yes, this has likely already been circulated, and the official decision is just to call for the reformation of the group.
Well, just to start with, I'm not loving that we're doing an intra-era hard fork purely on the basis of meeting contractual commitments to intersect milestones. So that first sentence is a little bit.
That is a bit weird, isn't it?
We're not doing this because it's good for Cardano. We're doing this to meet a contract milestone and get paid. What?
At the same time, we could advocate that the fact that it has been approved means that we need to deliver it in some way. So, but I agree that the wording is wrong because it shouldn't be stating that it's an agreement with the intersect milestone. It's probably more the fact that it has been approved by the community and that we need to deliver it. So it doesn't. The intersect milestone is an issue here, probably.
Yeah, I could see that as like IOG's incentive to call for the upgrade to happen, but not why we would like present to the community that we are doing an intra-era hard fork. You know, we're doing it because we're getting these new Plutus primitives that are going to unlock cool new features, and they're going to do it prior to the full Dijkstra era being ready to roll out. But I certainly don't have a contractual commitment to perform a hard fork. So yeah, it just reads really weird to have that in there as the first line.
Yeah.
Is there any other on-chain event that this intra-era hard fork actually enables? Or is there any like
What do you mean?
I
by
know there's
an
Plutus
event?
primitives, but like do we want to speak to anything to do with how well it aligns with Vision 2030, anything like that?
The only things that I can say at this point is, to my understanding, this would still be something. This document would be something that is immediately reviewed when the working group spins up, in order to start working on the comms package. But this document is not at all designed to be.
Okay, this is in public facing.
The base of the comms.
Yeah.
This is just a general understanding to start the working group, is how this was drafted.
Okay. I mean, with that context where it's really just to start the working group, I think this is fine. Go ahead, Christian.
Christian?
Christian, go ahead.
Sorry.
baby to manage. But I was gonna say the working group, that's where added scope could be plugged in if there's other community things tying into this from product and stuff. At the end of the day, there's just a proposal that goes through. It can be slammed by the community and doesn't go anywhere. So you do have those control gates.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I think everybody's on board for doing the intra-era hard fork. So yeah, I don't see a major issue there. Just again, like who's this? We get rid of this first opening sentence and we're good to go, because there are a few issues that are being addressed and resolved here that shouldn't need to wait all the way until Dijkstra is fully ready. And then obviously we get some probably relatively minor in terms of impact new Plutus primitives that might enable new contracts to come online or new design paradigms to be deployed. But again, it's a chicken and an egg. We need the primitives before we can build the contracts. So, it'll be however long before those contracts start leveraging those new primitives. Yeah, shall we do a show of thumbs, I guess, in the chat? Like if everybody's okay with proposing this as the scope to reinstitute the hard fork working group with the intent to work towards this version 11 intra-era hard fork. And it seems like we got a thumbs up from everybody, and there's been, so yeah, that's the 5 present members, and then Kevin Hammond, who's not present today due to a conference attendance, did vote asynchronously inside of the TSC internal chat. So we will consider the motion passed, so we can go ahead and move forward, Tex.
Okay, not a problem. So I will work with Jess Gilbert on this, and then, as I understand, it looks like also Bosco and Ryan from Intersect are going to be involved here as well. So I'll get pushing on that.
All right, fantastic. And jumping ahead a bit, seeing as how we do not have Alex present for protocol parameters update, and Kevin is not present for the Cardano Vision input from the TSC. Can you give us an update on where we stand with the committee elections?
Sorry, that's to me.
Oh yeah, sorry. Back to you again, Tex.
Yeah. So with the committee elections, there are 7 candidates for the technical steering committee. Voting opened up on Monday at noon UTC. Little interesting that we're going through a week of time change, but I'm sure we're going to work through that. Still using UTC as the primary communication. We should be okay, and that's all happening technically. But voting is open until next Friday, November the 7th, and again, closing at noon UTC. I don't know that there's many more updates than that, but if there's anybody that would like to either take on or take leadership of adjusting and onboarding slide deck for TSC, I wouldn't mind having some help there. So we have a new process, or not a new process, but something to actually onboard these people with, whoever it is that is selected that may not have already stood on the committee previously. Additionally, this does cycle back the conversation that seems to be ever ongoing, which is the chair/vice chair conversation. I believe we may have reached consensus, but there is still some thoughts going each which way, because there had not been anybody from the cohort elected in April that had wished to explicitly stand up based on attendance and other reasonings. So the desire, if it can be adopted by TSC, is essentially to have a new chair each election term. Right now that's 6 months. Potentially that might change in the future, but for now you'd have a new chair every 6 months, which splits the responsibility of that chair role amongst different committee members, but also ensures that topics stay consistent. So Again, I don't know that we need to take everybody's time to continue that discussion here, but if there are thoughts that are relevant, we can. That's just a brief explanation on kind of what's happened so far, and hopefully that's sufficient enough.
Go ahead, Ben.
Just a suggestion. It might be worthwhile to make sure that the co-chair is always from the newly incoming batch for 6 months, as opposed to the outgoing, because then you have a succession in theory, modulo the democratic process. But I think that's probably better for institutional memory.
That is the design of the program. So essentially, here's where TSC stands as of right now, right? Nobody from the April cohort has explicitly stepped up to say, I want to be the chair. Sebastian did that in a previous meeting on the basis of being able to have and hold a meeting. But that was not necessarily anything that was long standing. So if there is anybody that was elected in April that does wish to essentially take that chair role, that could be called as a court decision by TSC, and that sets the next 6 months in motion. Kevin, who is a candidate for the committee and is most likely somebody who's going to be reelected, could again be elected into what would be that vice chair capacity and would then take over as chair in April once again. Again, if that's the decision of the committee. So that's kind of where we stand. The design is to pick up and go with that, always electing out of the new group, the group of newly electeds. But when I initially revealed that or suggested that, or whatever the term we want to use is, there was kind of some widespread feedback that said, well, that might not work for us, and it's kind of confusing as to why. So
I think it's a guiding direction. I don't think you should override democratic choice. Just an ideal that might be nice. Like it's a recommendation in the same way that some organizations have like a gender parity recommendation, but ultimately the democratic process still reigns.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I would agree, that we must have a co-chair that must come from these like newly elected people. Like if none of them, I mean, the reason we're in the situation we are, for those that are new to the committee or whatever, is Kevin was the only one originally that stood up to be the chair of this committee, and I ran against him only so he wouldn't be running unopposed, and that's how we ended up in the chair and vice chair positions of the committee. So it was more taking whichever volunteers you can get versus having so many candidates that we had to whittle them down. So I think like Ben said, it's good practice that we should encourage somebody from the new cohort to become the co-chair and be ready to take over that leadership role in 6 months if the incumbent is no longer, the incumbent chair is gone because they don't stand for re-election or don't become re-elected. So that's a good practice. It's a good best practice, but not necessarily a requirement.
Yeah, I'd say it's my hope that such a guidance would, as I've seen it in other organizations, serve as an inducement to the kind of people, like if someone who's just been elected on wasn't going to take up that role, it might induce them to run for a position. That's the goal.
All right. Well, there you go. 30 minutes, and we got through the current agenda. Christian, go ahead.
Not an agenda item, just an FYI, is there are 3 more project requests coming in. Not, I guess, for incubation, but it's from the Ouroboros network team, projects that complement what they're doing. So I'll be passing that over to y'all's review, but it's for type protocols, IOSIM, and CERDOC. And CERDOC may be a point of conversation because it's a complement to KES agent, which is still TBD. So just prepping y'all for that dialogue on that.
I will need to recuse myself on those ones because colleagues of mine will be applying for the maintainer retainer role on on those or some of those projects.
Okay. Cool.
And so I guess the request is to submit these new packages for Intersect to own and to have responsibility to maintain and manage going forward.
Yeah, essentially it's going to be part of what I guess we're calling core node or core Haskell node because it complements that. I know KES agents already covered under the IOE contract, and there's renegotiation going on with their contract or something. If we do have these in there, I'm going to confirm with IOE that they are going to be the maintainers of these projects, and we're not just bringing it over willy-nilly.
Yeah, I guess that's always the concern, is that we end up the dumping ground, and then we have to go and find the budget to maintain and support and take care of these repos, because we've taken on the onus versus leaving them with their original founders or creators and letting those creators make the argument to the community that they should be maintained and funded.
Yeah, the case in point for why this derived is Cardominal is a CLI wallet that was given over to Intersect. The maintenance contract with TX Pipe did not go through for it, so the project is basically in a stagnation right now. No active teams working on it. And TX Pipe forked it and created their own version, so I'm actually putting a proposal to sunset our version, since there's no active person working on that unless another case can be made. But that's the reason for this process.
Go ahead, Duncan.
Obviously, I'm not going to vote on anything related to this because I need to recuse myself from it. But I should point out that technically, the two of those packages are existing dependencies of the Haskell node, so they're not like random things that we have to maintain. They have to be maintained because they are dependencies of of the existing node. It's just that for whatever reason they didn't get transferred the first time around. I'm not sure why. Maybe oversight. Maybe there's a reason. But they're in that sort of category.
I should have all three proposals shared to both OSC and TSC by the end of the week. So.
All right. Does anybody have any other business? Because otherwise we can give everybody back a half hour of their day.
Thank you for the half hour. May I have another?
Yeah, you get a half hour, you get a half hour, everybody gets a half hour. All right.
Have a great day, everyone.
All right. So yeah, we'll adjourn this meeting. Have a great day, everybody. And yeah, we'll see you next week and go from there.
Cheers, everybody.
Ta-ta.